My next guest is a contributing editor of Vanity Fair magazine. She had the enviable assignment of interviewing Jack Nicholson recently for the issue that will be on the stands tomorrow. Please welcome Nancy Collins, folks. How you doing, Nance?
First of all, let me say that Weekend Update has been so boring without you. Isn't that true?
Let's hope I'm not going back to do it again. Hey, I just read the interview before I came down here. Did you see the picture? Do we have this in the... Look at Jack.
That's the first time it's been on air.
With his little bambinos.
Baby. Those aren't actually his babies. We rented babies for that picture.
Oh, rental babies. You know what? I obviously don't know the man at all. You seem to have interviewed him more than anybody else, but I admire... I guess some people think of him as an iconoclast, but I admire him for being such a imbiber of life. I mean, this man certainly seems to enjoy his life more than most people I know. Is that true when you get to know him?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what makes Jack so interesting is he really loves his life, and he's not ashamed of anything. As he says in the beginning of the piece, I'm not ashamed of the way I live. Now, he goes on to tell me in this piece that he and his current lady, Rebecca Broussard, with whom he's had these two children, live in different houses. Jack lives in the house he's lived in for 20 years, and he bought her a house down the road. He said, but this is not an architectural issue. No, he said, this is an architectural decision, not a moral decision. Mm-hmm. He said, think of it as 2 bedrooms separated by a rather large space.
I love the quote at the end of the article when you ask him about is he still burned with passion or something, and he said, I consider myself to be a lightly reined-in, voracious animal.
Beast, he said.
Beast. That kills me. That is such a funny approach to it.
You know, I think of all the movie stars I've interviewed, Dennis, he's the smartest. He's really a very original thinker, and he's kind of like a 50s beat who has lasted through 3 decades and is very loved in Hollywood, as you know, because he's so generous. Mm-hmm. He's very good to his friends. He makes sure all of his friends work, and he gives money to them under the table, or, you know, as a friend would. He's a very generous guy.
Yeah, I was in a driving range once. He was hitting golf balls next to me, and he's not the greatest golfer in the world, but every person who came by came up to him and gave him advice. And I was there for an hour watching this, and I thought, he must be steaming, but he was so cordial with every one of them. I thought, this must be a pretty good guy. Now, he's one of the good guys you interview, one of the interesting guys. Who was, well, let's first off, who was tough for you? Who was a minefield?
Well, theoretically, it was Ted Koppel, who I did, because in our business, in the news business, Ted Koppel's the Dalai Lama. Yeah. And I was very nervous about this. And I talked to everybody, including I tracked down his high school teachers. I talked to Henry Kissinger about him. And when I got there, I knew I had to be really on the money. And he turned out to be a formidable partner. It was like playing John McEnroe in center court at Wimbledon.
Yeah,
but
he's sharp.
He very, very fast. But he turned out to be a great opponent and lots of fun, and I thought very sexy, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Even with the Bobby Goldsboro?
It's true. What can I tell you? He's a wit, he's intelligent, and he's funny, and that's sexy.
Yeah, and he's got the Bobby Goldsboro watching Scotty Grow haircut working for him.
And that is his hair. I get asked that all the time. Right.
Well, you better believe it, because he'd have a libel suit against the rug company if that was fake. You don't go in and say, give me the German World War II helmet, but tussle it a little. Now, who was just a drag to interview out of all these people you interview? Who?
Well, I could probably die a happy woman if I never talked to Sylvester Stallone again.
Yeah, you didn't get along with Sylvester?
Well, I did get along. I mean, my job is to get along with these people, and remember, they're on their best behavior. Nobody beats their wife in front of me. Mm-hmm. But he just is kind of, once you've done the interview with Sylvester, he has one life story, and he's been telling it ongoingly for the last 15 years, and I just didn't find him incredibly interesting, actually. That was the main thing. Mm-hmm. He was also, at the time, might I add, engaged to Brigitte Nielsen, remember that? So he was very distracted. He didn't have time to talk to another blonde, trust me.
Well, you know, they're always running off to watch dailies of that day shooting on Red Sonja.
Or Cobra. I think they were actually shooting Cobra when
Cobra,
I did the
of course.
Cobra. How could you forget?
Hey, now, it would seem to me that, how did you get interested in interviewing? Because you are going to bump into people that you don't like, and what attracted you in the first place?
Well, I started out to be an actress, and then I realized that I didn't want my life to be dependent on the kindness of those kind of strangers. And I faked my way into an interview when I was in college, And I got into the interview. It was with Rod McEwen. You remember Rod McEwen?
Oh, sure.
Listen to the Warm.
I've actually met him. You're lucky.
Yeah.
Was he nice? He was
He's
nice.
very
when I met him.
sweet.
Yeah.
He's a very sweet guy. And I got in there and I started asking questions and he answered everything I asked. And I thought, my God, what a great job this is. You don't even have to have a license.
So you were just bluffing.
I was bluffing, and then I managed to get that printed in a newspaper in Boston where I was in college, and I just said, this is a thunderbolt. And from then on, I just took off. And I also was a kid from Montana. You know, I'm from Hamilton, Montana, population 2,000. So I really had to, I was curious about the world. I think that was the real thing, the curiosity.
What do you think it is about you that Jack lets you do 3 interviews with him and nobody else hardly talks to him?
Well, it is a question of chemistry, isn't it, with people?
Yeah.
I mean, you know that from sitting here.
Does he flirt with you?
Yes, he flirts. He flirts. And, you know, within the context of the interview, I flirt back. But you stop it within the context of the interview. I mean, in many ways, I guess you could say I'm in the seduction business. I do seduce for a living, but so do they.
Yeah.
And the thing with actors is to sort of out-seduce them.
Well, I've got to stop it here, baby. We'll be right back with Rick Reynolds after this. Thanks for calling. Thanks.